Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show. We're live on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin. Alan Ruff and Alison McConnell are here with me to talk football, and we'd love your input as well. Give us your opinion on your favourite team, what's happening with them, anything that's bugging you in Scottish football and beyond, because we like to look at what's happening in the English Premier League as well as football further afield. And we start with some particular sad news if you are a Celtic supporter out there. The news today that sadly former manager Wim Jansen has passed away. Wim Jansen has died at the age of 75 after suffering from dementia. The Dutchman is fondly remembered by Celtic supporters as the man who stopped Rangers winning 10 in a row. However, in the Netherlands he is regarded as an icon of Feyenoord during their golden era. The midfielder made over 500 appearances, winning 4 league titles, the UEFA Cup, League Cup, Intercontinental Cup and a European Cup win over Celtic in 1970. He was capped 65 times for his country and played in 2 World Cup finals, losing to West Germany and Argentina respectively. In 1997 he became manager of Celtic with Murdo MacLeod as his assistant. He famously signed Henrik Larsson from his old club Feyenoord and guided Celtic to a never-to-be-forgotten League and Cup double. Rest in peace, Wim Jansen. Yeah, Wim Jansen sadly passed away, age of 75. I think for Celtic supporters, they will remember him with great fondness because it was such a huge year for Celtic to try and stop Rangers winning 10 in a row. Of
course, I think you have, it's twofold. I think he stopped the Rangers winning the 10th title, delivered Celtic's first for a decade, a hugely important championship, and also too, I think he's known as a man who introduced Henrik Larsson to Celtic, and we know how that unfolded and the relationship that brought. I think one of the bargains of the century, the 650 grand that Celtic paid Feyenoord ultimately for the services of Henrik Larsson, and a bit like Ange Postecoglou now, coming in and using your expertise of where you've been to introduce a player that you know can come in and do a job. But I think it's I think there'll be great sadness, and it raises the question again of dementia in football. Another ex-player who dies. I think 75 is still, you know, in this day and age, it's not particularly old. I think it's another former player who would have been heading footballs with regularity, and then brings into question again the link with dementia in the game. Yeah, absolutely. I was lucky enough to be a reporter at the time in my first venture out into television, Ruffy. I always found him warm, engaging, good sense of humour as well. And I think a lot of people, you know, will look at it and say, well, it was only a year, but what a year, a League and Cup double for Celtic.
Yeah, fantastic time, and I'm sure everybody at Celtic will have great memories, particularly the players, as Alison said, that he brought in. You know, Murdo's always talked very highly of him. Proper manager, proper gentleman, you know, somebody you could respond to as a manager. You know, he could put an arm around you and talk to you, and not throwing cups all over the place. But no, I never met him. Obviously, I did play against him in Argentina when Scotland beat Holland 3-2, and he was a right terrier on the park that day. I think he was up against Graham, you know, and they had a right tussle. So no, it's very, very sad news when we hear somebody like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I look at his overall career, Alison, I think the one thing that quite a lot of people maybe just remember certain players who go on to become managers as that moment in time, but if you're over in the Netherlands, boy, you know, what a career, what you know, so many honours that he won. And with that Feyenoord side, I always remember, I mean, obviously everybody's thinking about Wim as part of the Feyenoord side who defeated Celtic in the San Siro in 1970. I always remember Wim and a player called Wim van Hanegem. It's amazing how players that stick in your mind. And Celtic looked at that side, and possibly, I think, might have been a criticism that they underestimated Feyenoord, and that was really, at that point, the emergence of Dutch football and its dominance across Europe, because not only did Feyenoord win the European Cup, Ajax won it in 3 consecutive seasons as well. Yeah, and you have to appreciate the team, the international team that Wim Jansen was a part of. I think 2 World Cup finals he would have been represented at. He played in an extraordinary, exciting
team, as you say, a team that introduced total football, came in with this concept of playing a new way and a new style, and I think to be a part of that side speaks volumes for ability. There's no one getting anywhere near it without having a complete ability and knowledge of the game.
Yeah, you mentioned that team there. I might as well just take...
I can tell you some of it.
Oh, can you? Well, can I tell you something, Ruffy? Are you going to tell me the 78 side or the 74?
78 side that I played against.
Right, you go the 78 side and I'll
wouldn't get them all, but I'll get most of them.
No, Ruffy, you've got to get them all right. You played in the game for God's sake.
Rudy Kroll, centre half. Right. Obviously, Wim Jansen in there, the Van der Kerkhoff brothers, Johnny Rep, Nieskens, Rensenbrink, Shrivers was the goalkeeper, I think it was. Actually swapped Youngblood.
Jan Youngblood. Always remember.
I swapped jerseys with him. I remember that. The rest I can hardly.
Jan Youngblood.
I had it. Yeah.
You're a moron.
The rest of them, you know, and the ones that I mentioned, you know, Wim was more of a would you say a team player rather than a superstar. You know, the names I mentioned all went on to become, you know, legends in the game, you know, fantastic footballers, but Wim was that kind of player you needed in your team, you know, the guy that did all the doggy work and the tackles and the fierce stuff and everything, where the rest of there were massive stars, you know, in that team. But they were a good team because the nucleus of both teams, 74 and 78, were there. And that's why they were so successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Youngblood, Surbier, Riesbergen, Purtvliet, Kroll, Jansen, Neeskens, René van der Kerkhoff, Rob Rensenbrink, Willy van der Kerkhoff and Johnny Rep.
Yeah.
What a side.
Yeah,
that's a good side, Ruffy. But
the only thing a good side to beat them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let's not rewrite history. Anyway, the reason why I'm mentioning it is the 74 side for me, you know, when you're growing up, Ali, I always mention to him, when you collect the Panini stickers, you know, the 1974 World Cup, I have it in pristine condition with every sticker in it.
Seriously?
As a boy. You know, these guys' names, Youngblood, Surbier, Riesbergen, Arie Haan, Rudy Kroll, Wim Jansen, Johan Neeskens, Wim van Hanegem, Johnny Rep, Rob Rensenbrink and Johan Cruyff. I mean, that is a side, Ruffy.
Yeah, well, you add Cruyff to that 78 team and you've just... topped it off, you know. Obviously we didn't play against him, but he adds something to that team that you've just read out.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. And of course, you know, 1970, I mean, Celtic, I think Celtic took the lead through Tommy Gemmell and the Feyenoord came back and won by 2-1. I mean, they were a good team, Alison.
And just as Dutch football was beginning to emerge as a real force across Europe, I always remember Jim Craig actually conceding that he felt as though they had underestimated Feyenoord ever so slightly going into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas says they were on a huge bonus to beat Celtic in 1970. It's amazing what money can do. I mean...
What's the opportunity to win a European title?
Knowing Celtic, the bonuses would not have been discussed at that point. They just get out there and try and win it. When you listen to some of the Lisbon Lions and their great tales, listen, great sadness. Lucky enough, Ruffy, I think, to have been asked to host a dinner with not only Wim Jansen and Murdo, who I'm pals with, but all the team that stopped that 10 in a row, and they all went out for dinner. And it was one of those nights I will never forget, because not only was he, again, warm, engaging and great to chat to, but that whole team had what every team has. You know, when you talk about, when we talk about the loss of Walter Smith, the manager is the key to it all, but the players, the camaraderie, the spirit, the bonding. You know, if Rangers 9 in a row side, you know, are never to be forgotten and are locked tight in memory, you know, the team that stopped the 10 will forever be remembered. And of course with Celtic and the team that Rangers put together to stop the 10, Stephen Gerrard will be likewise, as Ali mentioned, remembered forever and a day.
Yeah, it is. It's a team effort. It's not just about the manager, just about the players. You've got to have the manager that knows how to deal with the players that he's got, and certainly both of them, prove that they can get over the line, and that's something a lot of managers have never been able to achieve.
Yep, absolutely. Anyway, I'm sure I speak for many, and of course there's a lovely tweet that's come out from Rangers Football Club just mentioning their sadness and condolences to Wim Jansen's family hearing his death at 75 years of age. And of course the strong link there, Wim Jansen really will forever be linked with Feyenoord. It was, as he said, on the occasions when he went back there, not only as a player but as a coach, an academy trainer as well, a director of football. It was in his blood, and Giovanni van Bronckhorst will obviously remember him with great fondness as well. So lovely touch from Rangers, and lovely touch from so many people across the footballing world. Our condolences, our thoughts and prayers go to everyone connected to Wim Jansen, a great man and a sad loss to the footballing world. So from Wim Jansen, and I think it's a great little line there, she wasn't prompted on it, Ruffy. 75 is young. Yeah. So how you feel? You okay?
I'm feeling fine. We're playing tennis tonight, so as long as I keep playing tennis and I can run about, I'm more than happy.
Absolutely. It's only a matter of time, Ruffy, before you are selected for Dukla Pumperson in goal. Anyway, to the fixtures, Scottish Premiership. Really looking forward to it. There's lots to look forward to. Of course, St Mirren against Aberdeen. We had a chat with Andrew Shiney about the Dons. Here's the fixtures and what you can look forward to. He thinks that Aberdeen could, this half of the campaign really start to motor and get a run that will see them move up that table. Well, Jim Goodwin's side will have something to say about that. St Mirren Aberdeen tonight, Hearts against Celtic tomorrow, Rangers Livingston, Motherwell Hibs, Dundee United against Ross County, and St Johnstone against Dundee at the bottom there is certainly one of the red hot fixtures we'll be talking about, and we'll hear from Callum Davidson, Ange Postecoglou, Robbie Nielsen, all talking on today's show. St Mirren against Aberdeen. Again, as Andrew mentioned there, Niall McGinn's gone, so slowly but surely they'll be looking to maybe move on some of the people that have served them well over the last decade and try and get more and more new players in.
Yeah, I think it was just a matter of time before he identified players for the long-term future of the club, and obviously some players have been there a wee while. Sometimes the manager's got to make quick decisions, sometimes he waits to see if they're going to contribute, and obviously he's now decided that he needs fresh blood to come in, and sometimes when that happens you need people to move out, because it's all about wages nowadays. So yeah, but I'm sure he might be, a week to go, Aberdeen might be trying to bring something else in.
Ruffy, the 25th of January is what I call your nightmare week, Ali, because the fans are thinking, I hope they can sign a player. And then there are some sceptical fans and a manager like Stephen Glass who's thinking, I hope we don't lose a player. Calvin Ramsey, Bologna, reported £3.3 million bid. There are lots of other clubs looking at him, but if they were to lose him close to the edge of that window, you're scurrying around thinking, how am I going to get someone?
I think as a manager, that's your real headache, that someone comes in with a very enticing financial offer that's too difficult for a board to knock back, and you lose a key player. And Calvin Ramsey, I think, has caught the eye. I've seen him a few times this season. I think he's very reminiscent of a Kieran Tierney, very much of that ilk. A very talented young boy. You would expect that he will have a pretty big future in the game. Whether or not that means a move away now or maybe in the summer, I think it will be inevitable at some stage. But even to further your net and look at the wider picture, I think all managers fear that, and I don't think there's anyone who doesn't have their price realistically. I think if someone comes in with a decent offer, regardless of personnel, I think a board would always be tempted, and as a manager or a coach, it's a real headache then trying to replace someone.
Is it a worrying trend? I'll put it to both of you. Do you think this is a worrying trend now, Ruffy, where we have emerging talent, but we're not really getting a run of seeing them develop in Scottish football now because of the money that's available down south, and maybe other clubs and scouts looking and saying, well, if we can get this person at 18 and 19 and 20 quickly, and they've got that potential. Nathan Patterson's another one. Gilmore was away before he even got to his late teens.
Yeah, I think what has happened is the Kieran Tierneys and the Gilmores have opened the eyes of people down in England. There wasn't a big cry for really paying a lot of money for our young players. But I think they've went down. They've done well with the teams they've went to. Now, the clubs down there and abroad are saying, well, these boys aren't we're not testing paying money with them because they're all producing the goods. So I think that's what's helping some of the young boys now. Yeah, we would like to see them staying a wee while longer. I'm sure the clubs would like to see them staying a wee while longer. But the kind of money, the $3.5 million, things like that, Scottish clubs can't turn that down.
Yeah, Bob has scorned at that price. He says 3.3 million for Ramsey. You're having a laugh. Bob, we're not having a laugh. What we'll do is we'll wait till Charlie Adam comes in, and Charlie will decide what the transfer fee is. Now, before everybody batters us, I don't think he'll be in tomorrow, Ruffy. I think he's playing. It's such a crucial game.
Yeah, it was good to see him playing at the weekend. I think he played a bit park, but he was on strutting his stuff.
Did you say he was playing in a big part or a bit part?
a bit part.
Yes, absolutely.
At the weekend.
Till he got subbed.
Till he got subbed.
And then criticised.
Did he get criticised again?
He's talking about the experienced players. Let's not mince
words here. No, I mean at Dumbarton. He was on a wee while at Dumbarton.
Yeah,
Charlie.
And he got subbed.
Did he? But I don't think he was. That was.
I think they were criticising him.
Oh, they were criticising him in the week before.
Yeah.
Yes, but. He is an experienced player, so I can't argue with that.
Yeah, absolutely. You ducked out of that one brilliantly. It is a worrying trend, though. I mean, we're losing those type of players. I mean, you want to see. I like to see players always remember. Many a manager, Craig Brown, would say continually, if you can get a player that can have 100 to 150 games in Scotland, it's great for us. Get regular football, then think about moving. Yeah. But some of the players will go down. I hope, Nathan Patterson can really push at the start of next season, get in that Everton side on a regular basis. You want to see players play.
Yeah, you want to see them flourish. The last thing you want to see is to go down and to stagnate or not get exposure to first team football. And I'll qualify that by saying that, to be fair, Nathan Patterson wasn't getting a huge amount of first team football at Rangers either. But I think you have seen, particularly when he's appeared for Scotland, you have seen what he is capable of. But I think the problem's twofold. I think there's an attraction in going to a bigger league, and there's an attraction in going and showcasing your talent in that environment. And two, I think Scottish clubs just aren't inoculated enough financially to withstand decent offers when they come in. I think there's a necessity to take them sometimes, maybe when you would prefer to hang on to someone for a year or two.
But $3 million's nothing to English clubs.
It's pennies. I mean, let's be honest. It's loose change at the back of a sofa. And you think if he had to stay at Aberdeen for maybe another season, a season and a half, maybe get in and around the Scotland squad, all of a sudden that price can go up. You can see why it would be in Aberdeen's favour to maybe try and hang on to him. But I think too, sometimes players, if there is any interest, it can be very easy to have your head turned and to want to go into a bigger environment and test yourself there.
Yeah, I know our agents will be screaming in the telly, Ruffy, right now, giving it, listen, players have got to protect themselves. They could get an injury, so go and get that money, and then at least you're securing your future if you get the move down there. But I would cite the likes of an Andy Robertson, who, everybody talks about going to Queen's Park, but he went to Dundee United and played good football. Then he moved on to Hull before he hit Liverpool. Kieran Tierney had a barrel load of appearances at Celtic, titles in the bag before he moved to Arsenal. But
that's what I'm saying, that these clubs now have looked at these players and said, they're the real deal. Let's take another wee gamble, on somebody else at $3.5 million's not a lot of money. And by the way, we're going into Alison's house after this. If she gets shot changing her couch at $3.5
million. she's building her own studio piece, by the way.
Referencing our more financially better off neighbours down south.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
No, I just think the boys that went down there have done well. So clubs are now saying, if we can get them at the right price, it's worthwhile, seeing if they can hack it.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we mentioned about the injury to Callum McGregor, and right off the back of that as well, Rangers, bad news with Yanis Hadji out for the season, knee surgery. That is a blow.
Yeah, there seems to be injuries all over the place. Hamstring seems to be a big one. I think it just shows you how well tuned the modern day player is now. They're absolutely primed to perfection, and they're picking up all these injuries. I mean, I can see why. I mean, I was at Thistle the other day there, and I was in the boot room looking at the new boots you know, the boots they're wearing, there is no support whatsoever.
None.
There's nothing, you know, there's no, you can see why they're picking up all these wee foot injuries, and because any tackle going in and any clash is going to pick up an injury, but it seems to be the thing now, you know, that and unfortunately you want to stay away from injuries because you want to be in the first team.
Yeah, which is why I still wear my black and white Adidas World Cup mouldies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're not having any of these thin things and somebody putting, as you say, a stud on the top of your boot and then you're
gone.
out.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. And there is a lot of challenges like that now. If you see, you know, late challenges, you know, catching the bottom of their foot and that, and there is no support whatsoever.
Yeah, that's a blow, Alison. And also, I think the bonus is at least Van Bronckhorst will look and say to himself, well, I'm getting Joe Aribo back, Nigeria out of the Africa Cup of Nations. And of course, Alex Lowry is just a wonderful story.
Yeah, I think he couldn't have scripted his debut any better. I think he's a player that's been spoken of highly for some time in and around the club. I think big things are expected of him. I'm sure it'll do his confidence no harm at all. Whether or not it's enough to come in and genuinely tap on the first team doors, another question now. But I take your point on Hadji. I think it's a blow. I think he's been a key performer in the first team. I think to lose him for the remainder of the season will be a disappointment. I think it's offset by the fact that they have Aribo back. I think he's clearly been our best player of the season. I think Aribo's made them a bit more fluent in the middle of the park. I think he offers a creativity that is lacking when he's not there. So I think he could be a pretty enormous player going into next week's game at Celtic Park. And of course, I think injuries have been the story of the season for Celtic. I think there's not been a point in the campaign where Ange Postecoglou's had a full quota of players available to him, and when you look, it's all been key players and key injuries and areas in the pitch where they've maybe lost 2 and 3 from the same position. I think it's been a real handicap for them this term.
And with that in mind, Robbie, everybody, when you're in a race at the top and the bottom, you start to look at teams, the fans start to look at teams and say, okay, where are potentially the points dropped? Rangers dropped 2 points against Aberdeen. Livingston they've got 4 out of 1 defeat in the last 5 games. So they're on a good wee run, 2 back-to-back wins. Is it likely to happen for them? I think Rangers have still got more than enough in the squad.
Yeah, you would say so. You would think if it was at Livingston, there would be a lot of things that you would take into consideration. But at Ibrox, you've got a full house. You've got most of the players available to play. You know, Livingston will try and frustrate. There's no doubt about that. They're quite good at that. You know, and if Rangers don't get a goal at a certain time, it could be a long night. But I really do think that Rangers have got too much firepower. They've so much possession at home as well, usually dominating the game. So big night for the goalkeeper, Livingston goalkeeper. I think he's been superb this year. He's going to be a big player for them. But I still think Rangers. I think I went for 2-0 Rangers.
Yeah, okay. And quite a few people, Ronnie Chapman says, Peter, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst said in the presser that they'll bring someone in the next couple of days. I think he's always mentioned over the last week that, you know, he'll be scouring and looking and maybe want to add someone. The big fear is, as we mentioned, it's not only St Mirren, it's Rangers. Is that somebody comes in and entices Joe Aribo away, which would be a nightmare. Somebody comes in and takes Connor Golson. You know, do Rangers eventually go and get John Souttar and pay the money?
Yeah, I think these are the questions that you're looking at getting into the last few days of the window. Souttar is the one that you think it would make sense to go and pay the money, pay the 500k, whatever it's going to be, to get him in and settled. I think the boy himself's in an unenviable position where he is just now. I think it can be very difficult for players being put in that position going into the second half of the season when it's public knowledge that you're going elsewhere. And I think Goulson too, I think that's the one that you would be watching with some interest over the next few days.
Yeah, I get a feeling that Rangers will go in and get Souttar right away.
Yeah, I think it's good that the other clubs apart from Rangers and Celtic are digging their heels in. They're fed up losing their players. They're not going to let them go cheaply. I have every sympathy for Hearts and all the other teams that sometimes their players get pinched way under what their value is. So I agree. I think Rangers, with what's at stake at the end of the year, you know, the European stuff and winning the league, the money that Hearts are wanting could be the decision, you know, to bring him in. We don't know where Golson's going, if he's going, but if he's going, I think they've got to pay the money.
Yeah, before we get to the Old Firm game, of course, it's Livingston and Ross County, which Rangers fans will be hoping they can go into the game at Celtic Park, maximum points, and still have that 4, possibly more points advantage.
I think over the next week or so, what you're looking at is a defining point of the campaign. I think what happens over the next 3 games can really shape how the latter half of the campaign plays out. I think both teams will look to go into it with momentum at their back without losing further points. I think Rangers stumbled at Pittodrie. Celtic were in a position to take advantage because they'd beaten Hibs. But I think tomorrow night, I don't think you can underestimate the magnitude of that. For Celtic, I don't think they can afford to drop points regardless of personnel being out. And, you know, Tom Rogic and Maeda are also out because they've been called up for international duty. But it's about finding ways, I think, to win. And you know, we talk about this often, about form books going out the window when it comes to games and derby games between Celtic and Rangers. I think what you do tend to actually find is that the team with momentum is a team with the confidence who tend to prevail. So I think it's very important for both teams that they go in a fairly decent vein of form.
Yeah, well, Celtic have certainly got momentum. They've got Hearts and then Dundee United before they face Rangers, but they don't have, as Alison has alluded to there, Callum McGregor. It's a big blow, and Ange Postecoglou was talking about the loss of his captain today.
This is not just about football. He's had a significant injury, so we just want to make sure he recovers and he feels good. As you said, Callum's the type of character who will be itching to get back out there. But first of all, we look after the person's health and make sure they recover well. And then in terms of when he gets back to training and when he gets back to playing, we'll be guided by the medical professionals.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to put a time frame on it, but there's no doubt it's a blow. I noticed that Earl Mucker Barry was defending his side on the roughhouse tactics of Alloa. To be fair to Barry and Alloa Athletic, I think when you get a cup tie where either half Celtic or Rangers lose a crucial player, there's always a bigger furore over the whole thing, rather than the point that there's a couple of things that I think have reared their ugly head with challenges that went in. The loss of McGregor's one, and of course they're obviously going to be looking into Mohamed Nyang's tackle as well on Ideguchi, which is certainly a little naughty. Yeah,
he's our player. He's a young player we've got in Alloa at loan.
Yeah, what are you teaching him, eh? What are you teaching him?
No, he is, as Barry said, he's a young boy learning his trade. The strength of his game is making opposition aware that he's there. He's right in with tackles. I think the tackle was a fair tackle. Unfortunately, his leg followed through and connected, and I could see why people would be shouting it's a red card, but I don't think initially he went in to hurt anybody. It was just his momentum took him through, because he won the ball well clear of the Celtic player, and McGregor's one was just a head knock, just an accident.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been slightly unfair, the criticism towards Alloa and the way they went about their business. They're trying to put out a giant, didn't quite materialise, although Nyang is going to face an SFA sanction for it. Yeah,
to be fair, I did think it was a red card. I didn't think there was malice in it, and I actually thought he knew. I thought he tried to almost pull out of it. I didn't think there was anything malicious about the tackle, but for me it was a red card.
And has it been given the option of it?
He's been cited by the SFA. Defend it. Yeah, but the thing here, Ruffy, and this is where the difference between now sitting here, at the end of January, and maybe sitting here a year from now, is if VAR is agreed in April to come in next season, then suddenly these decisions, they'll be on it, they'll be looking at it, on the day of the game, and somebody will say, wait a minute, there's the follow through. You only have to look at what's happening in English football, when there is a situation where there's no malice in it, but it's still something that could have injured a player.
I got a funny feeling he might get away with it, because it wasn't the foot that he made the challenge with. It wasn't like his foot that hit the other foot. Do you know what I mean? It was his trailing foot. It wasn't as if he dived in with his leading foot.
You don't think so?
No, if it had been his leading foot that had caught the boy in the ankle, I'd have said red card immediately. But
I thought it was his leading foot.
Yes,
no, it was trailing foot that hit it. He cleared the ball with the tackle, and his other foot came through and caught him in the ankle.
I fear as if we're going to have a real difference of opinion here on this one.
Well, maybe have another look at it. I watched it 2 or 3 times, and the tackle he made for me was fair, but his trailing foot caught him in the ankle.
I remember on Radio Clyde, Ruffy, we always used to say, if you've got that wrong, will you come back tomorrow, resign? And apologise and resign. It's a classic line. No, but
can we get a chance to say it again sometime?
Yeah, it's called buying the rights and then trying to put it on.
No, we can say, no, I think I've recorded the game.
I'll look at it
I think, though, it's one of the great misnomers of football that people say he won the ball. The fact is, sometimes it doesn't matter if you win the ball, that if you win the ball recklessly, it's still endangering an opponent and it's still a red card.
That is the key issue here, Ali. But listen, no harm to the boy. Nobody is on a real witch hunt here trying to get the boy a ban. The SFA will decide it. You think it's a red card. I didn't think there was any malice in it, but I think the determining factor here is if it's deemed to be, reckless in the follow-through that could have injured a player badly. We wait and see on this one. Nevertheless, it's Hearts against Celtic. And the other thing, which is a bugbear, and this can only happen surely in Scottish football, Hearts have slashed the allocation for Celtic fans, but they can't even sell out that end. They're still selling tickets for it, Ruffy. So Celtic have got a reduced capacity in that end.
You'll see that, yeah. Yeah, and I think anybody who goes to Tynecastle at a Hearts-Celtic game will realise that the fans make that game. Everything that goes on during it, sometimes it's a wee bit hostile, sometimes it's not. But you want a full stadium. You don't want to curtail, I think Celtic usually was at 2008 or something like that. And to cut it down to 1,000 and have empty seats will look ridiculous.
Yeah. Am I the only one who thinks that Scottish football is on this mission to absolutely kill all of what I would call our Category A games? I mean, honestly, if somebody landed in this area and actually analysed everything that the Scottish Premiership clubs do, they think they were insane. I mean, they go out of their way to absolutely kill off an Old Firm game, which is something that's looked upon, albeit sometimes for the wrong reasons, across the globe as a game with passion, with fans, with sometimes the poison of the bitter people who go to it and sing nasty songs. But the whole spectacle of it has been killed. Absolutely killed as a derby now. It's all one-sided. Oh, let's have all your fans in, and only 700 of Celtic or Rangers fans, which does my head in. I don't care what their chief executive, their managing directors, or their owners say. They've killed it off, and now you've got the stupidity, which started, by the way, with Leanne Dempster at Hibs. Carried on by Hearts, jumped on by Rangers, and then Celtic on their tit for tat. It's just lunacy.
I completely agree with you. I think there's no common sense to it at all. I think I can see Hearts thinking in terms of tomorrow night's game, thinking if we can have as many of our own support in here, make it as feisty as it can possibly be, as hostile and as difficult for Celtic, that backfires when you can't sell seats. I don't think there's any common sense behind it at all. To go back to your point about the Celtic and Rangers derby, I think it dilutes the occasion entirely. I think I said before, I took real pelters for it, not for the first time, that I thought, there was an opportunity for Celtic to rise above it and to say, let's go back to having fans in and let's market the game, let's make it it holds the same attraction that it did, I think, and then it goes back to tit for tat. I think you have no one wanting to lose face and be the first club to say, well, we'll allow fans to come back in because you didn't. I think, I think it definitely dilutes the derby as an occasion. And again, I remember interviewing Henrik Larsson once to talk about the derbies that he'd played in. When you think of all the derby games, he'd played in a Manchester derby, he'd played in the great Barcelona, Real Madrid rivalry, and he was saying, Celtic Rangers trumped everything because of the fact that it was so hostile for both clubs wherever you were going, and also the fact that you always had a real mix of spectators in the ground, and the real tension then that creates. I think you take some of that away when you're playing in front of your own support.
Yeah, I think the only way I could sum it up, Ruffy, is I think Scottish football has really embraced the Trump era. with firing out their own narrative to satisfy, pander to a group of fans that just defies belief.
But the bottom line is they think they're doing the right by their own fans. They think that their fans are buying into it. They're just trying to sell it to their fans, and the fans are going, oh, the club are looking after us, blah, 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 and we're not going to complain, we're all going to get into the game and that kind of thing. But there's a bigger picture, and anybody that's been to football, the rivalry needs to be there, and I know it's not on the scale of a Rangers-Celtic game, but we played Airdrie on Saturday, and Airdrie bought, I think it was 800, and it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Them getting their banter, and our fans getting their banter, and everything that went on, and it just made the game a lot better.
Absolutely. Kevin McFarlane says it was Celtic and Rangers that started it, not Hibs or Hearts, Peter. No, Kevin, I'm sorry. You're 100% wrong. It was Hibs who started all this, and then the tit for tat, there was a climb down, and then eventually Rangers jumped on the bandwagon, pandering to a group of supporters who didn't want 7,000 Celtic fans in their end, and then Celtic returned fire, and then from there, this is what we're served up with now. We miss, and we will miss until there's eventually a climb down, which Stuart Robertson has mentioned in the last week. He doesn't see any light at the end of the tunnel on it, so it's not going to happen.
I think it's very difficult now because someone has to make the first step, and I think it becomes very difficult for either club to do it. And I would agree with Ruffy. I think both sets of supporters are firmly behind their own club's stance on it, which I think then also makes it very difficult to step down from.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Hearts against Celtic, we'll see what the atmosphere is like. Robbie Nielsen responding to the suggestion that Celtic go to the capital city with more than a few injuries. He's not having any of that. He says they've got more than enough to cope with the loss of some key players.
Celtic have got a massive squad, a huge squad with a lot of really, really good players, international players. They play the same system pretty consistently. So we expect them just, to slot different players into the same formation and style of play. So, whether it's X player or Y player.
Yeah, more than enough to handle the loss of the likes of McGregor, Tom Rogic. We shall see. It's always a great atmosphere. I love the stadium. Yeah. I love the stadium because I like grounds where the fans are right on your tail. The great thing about Tynecastle, Ruffy, is you think there was a goal scored and they've only won a throw in. Yeah. The abuse is mental.
Well, as you know, I suffered it 13 times.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not at Tynecastle, maybe 8 at Tynecastle and 7 at. But you're right. It's a great atmosphere, great feeling to play.
Did you like going into that kind of
I loved it. Yeah.
Davy Provan used to mention to me, he said that the old shed at Tynecastle, he says, I dreaded it because you used to go over and it was a corner and you knew you were getting it. And sadly, Davy, with a smile on his face, did mention the fact that not only were you getting abuse, but you were getting a few things hurled at you, which is not what we want to see. Yeah. But the atmosphere in these games is just sensational. That was when you could stand at games as well. But now Tynecastle has still managed to get that cauldron.
Yeah. And it is, and any footballer will tell you, there's nothing better than going to a venue like that and getting something out of the game. It just gives you that extra buzz that you've went there in the hostile environment and you've come away with a win or a draw or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure every player would rather go to that environment than go to an environment that the stadium's half full.
Is this more likely to be the slip-up?
Well, these are the games that I think Rangers and Celtic will slip up. Aberdeen, Hibs, Hearts, away, I think at home. But no, I think Hearts, with the form that they're on just now and the way some of their players are playing, Craig Gordon's still producing it. Wee boy Mackay's been electric for the last month. So I can't see Celtic running away with it. I think it's an odd goal game for me, and I think I've went Celtic 2-1.
Yeah, okay. I'm going through to work in Edinburgh tomorrow. And then obviously I'm going to take one of my Jambo mates that I used to play football with out for a meal. Now, I don't know about you, Ali, I don't know who's paying. He's quite a big lad, so I'm going to go through there, give him a bit of banter, and then I'll go to work at the game at Tynecastle and he'll go in with his heart scarf and support the Jambos. That's the great banter of it. Strangely enough, I don't know, you wouldn't sample this, but having lived through there for such a long time, 12 years, I'm sure there's racism and bigotry and sectarianism through there, but there's more a sense of the pals that I had were all, yeah, Hibby, you're a Jambo. It was great. The banter was magnificent.
Yeah, and I think that if your team's winning, it's good. I think it's maybe not quite so much fun. It's maybe best that you go for your meal before the game rather than you go after it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my first day in Edinburgh to work in Edinburgh, Ruffy, was 1986 in the May. Wasn't a good time to try and make friends. half the place was greeting. I mean, they were in tears.
The thing that when I went through the 82, and I know things have moved on since then, but the thing way back then that I always remember, most of the players were Hibs and most of the players were Hearts were all locals. They were all supporters.
Yeah.
They knew what it was like to play for Hibs, Kano and wee Mickey Weir and all these boys, and the Hearts boys were the same. They were all in the vicinity and they all knew what it was to win that game, and that made it even more better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Alison's out in the lead at the moment, so we've talked about 3 games. I've got Aberdeen to win by a solitary goal. What about you?
I think I've got a draw. Tonight, sorry, I think I have a draw.
A draw, Ruffy?
I've got Aberdeen 2-1.
Okay.
Peter, that's a bit like celebrating a penalty before you've scored it. I would just...
By the way, can I tell you something? The amount of times I've celebrated before I run up to the ball. By the way, you only need to look at last week. I was celebrating hitting a forehand and he still managed to get it past me. Anyway, apart from anything else, Ali, the other one is Rangers, I think, will win comfortably against Livingston 2-0.
I think I've got 3-0, I think I went for.
2, I went 2.
2-0 for that one.
I think Livy will sit in, try and frustrate.
Yeah. And the Celtic one, I think Celtic to edge it 2-1, Ruffy.
I think I went 2-1 as well, yeah.
Yeah, I think I said 2-1, but I think I was the first person to say 2-1.
Oh, yeah. She's getting annoying now, isn't she? Yeah, well,
plenty of time yet to keep working on that.
Don't worry about it. There could be a collapse. As soon as I sense that you're maybe going on a holiday to Dubai, it could all crumble, Ruffy. You never know. The predictors neck and neck at the moment. And thanks to so many people who are giving us their predictions. Hugh Scott, who's a regular, says 2-1 Aberdeen. For me, says Hugh. Gordon McLean says, come on Peter, are you having a laugh? What do you know about work? It's a very good point, which my brother makes on a regular occurrence to me. I once, says RFC, I once watched Rangers beat Hearts and I was in the Hearts end. Now, that takes a bit of doing, Ruffy. I have to say, I have been... I don't think I've been in an end, in the opposite end of a game. You're always in the luxury of being in the press box, but when I was a youngster, I don't think I would have been able to go into the opposite end as a fan.
What, the opposition?
Just said it.
Did I? No.
I mean, I don't think I could say that. Could you?
There's a great Billy Connolly story, but we can't repeat it on this show. But if you get a chance to read Billy Connolly's book, there's a great old firm gag in there, and it just sums that whole thing up, doesn't it?
Go get me a Bovril. But Ali, have you ever been in the opposite end?
Yes, once.
Yes.
Way before my working days began. I was only a kid, only 14 or 15.
Yeah.
We were selling Marie Curie things outside Ibrox before a Rangers Celtic game, and we got allowed in to watch the game.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, because obviously I was good friends with Sandy Jardine and we worked together at Radio 4, he was my co-commentator, and the banter was absolutely magnificent, and he had a brilliant, wicked sense of humour, Sandy, and he said to me, I want you to come through as a guest, you moved to Rangers as not their ambassador. Sandy was, really switched on marketing-wise, and he says, come through as a guest to the Old Firm game, Ruffy. He gave me pelters the entire game, but it was good fun right in that stand. You're that used to, I mean, as you know, you and I are used to sitting on the gantry just with a tin helmet on and the head down.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could get into the opposite end at any game. I'm not quite sure I could do that.
I think if you're in a Rangers Celtic game and you're sitting in the opposite end with a Celtic hat on and a scarf, you think you would get noticed very quickly.
Absolutely. Anyway, I think, Ron Ronnie Chapman says, Peter, would you not get into the Rangers end with your wife at an Old Firm game? No, I'd just push her along and let her go and hang about with her pals.
I was once, many years ago when I worked at Celtic, Alan Thompson, I think, was suspended or injured for a Rangers game at Ibrox, and the Celtic TV guys took him up to the gantry to co-commentate, and that was an eye-opener for him. I think he could not believe what he got. It was, I sat quite far away.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, the banter is absolutely magnificent, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not... It's a sport, it's a game, and the normal people in it, and I thank so many of you who come on here and talk about your experiences. We thoroughly enjoy the fact that you're all football fans and you love the game. I tell a lie, Ruffy, I have been in one opposite end, because you know I followed down south. When Dalglish joined Liverpool, I was down at Anfield on many an occasion. Davy got his tickets when he was manager of Everton, said, come down to the Everton-Liverpool game. And I said, oh, that's going to be great. And so Davy's brother Kenny, two of us are heading down there, and I thought to myself, we're going to be centre stand, and it's going to be absolutely magnificent. And Ruffy were in the middle of the Everton fans, and they gave Steven Gerrard dog's abuse. I mean, they gave him pelters, and they were talking about him. He was involved in some altercation. They were talking about him saying, you're going to jail in the morning. They were mental, right? I mean, the banter was unbelievable, but Gerrard absolutely bossed the game. He was fantastic. So as a kind of a Liverpool fan in the Everton end, I was saying to Kenny, by the way, I said, if Liverpool score, is it a good idea to jump up? You're on your own.
Yeah, I had the same. I won't name them, but it was a Partick Thistle Celtic game, and two of my friends who were Celtic supporters asked could they come to the director's box, and I said yeah, fine, yeah, okay. And they came into the boardroom beforehand, something to eat, something to drink. We went up, and the Celtic director sat on that side, and our director sat on this side with guests, and my two guests were sitting in front of me. And I don't know if you know, it was a midweek game. Celtic scored within a minute, and the two of them jumped out their seats in the Partick Thistle in the director's box, which was quite embarrassing.
Yeah, was that Kenny?
If you want to name him, you can name him.
Brilliant. Elsewhere, I think Hibs, certainly for me, because I watched him at Hearts, they signed Dimitri Mitchell. I think if this boy can stay clear of injury, I think this is a great signing for them.
I think it could be a good signing for them too, and I think it maybe just raises the mood a bit too, and offsets the departure obviously of Martin Boyle. I think it gives the Hibs fans something to look forward to, gives them something to look to. I think he might just offer something a wee bit different.
Yeah, I like him. He's got a good left peg, good engine on him, good delivery as well, Ruffy. Well, that's a good signing for me for Hibs.
Well, Sean Maloney's obviously identified somebody that he's had his eye on a few years ago, and he knows what he can bring. Obviously, as Alison said there, the Hibs supporters are still trying to mull over losing Boyle, so the more people that he brings in, that will take the pain away.
Yeah, well, the boy Chris Mueller, I don't know if you got a chance to have a look at him, Ruffy. I like Mueller. He's got a good touch on him as well. I'm not saying he's going to be the replacement for Martin Boyle, but he's certainly, he's got good technical ability.
Yeah, I'm surprised Sean Maloney's not tapped into more of his knowledge at the Belgium scene and players that he's noticed throughout, being over them.
De Bruyne
on loan. Yeah, but
I've always wanted to be a Hibby.
Yeah, I thought it would give a wee bit of flavour, maybe some kind of players right out of left field, but still another week to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Try not to get the Hibs fans too happy on that one, but nevertheless, they've already got Henderson, Clark, Melkerson, Bashiri in as well. So he started to mould a team that will change, I think, drastically over the piece. And of course, they come up against Motherwell at Fir Park tomorrow night, which could be a humdinger. Our man Craig is going to go and watch that. Interestingly, the line coming out about Jack Ross. Queen's Park might be sniffing around trying to get him as a manager. I always say to Ruffy, he's kind of looked and had a wry smile, but I think Queen's Park over the next few years could become a major force in Scottish football. Ruffy's team are the third force as far as Glasgow's concerned, but I think Queen's Park are are going to be more and more to the forefront.
I think there's no doubt in the fact that they have the ambition to get there. I think you can see the key positions that they've invested in over the last few months. I think it would be an eye-raising appointment. I think it would be interesting to see if they can sell themselves to Jack Ross. I think he might fancy just hanging fire for a bit and seeing what else may come up. But it's an interesting one. I think it's a clear sign of their intent and where they wish to go, the direction that they wish to take the club.
Yeah, thanks to Kevin, who says Billy Connolly's Bovril in the shoes joke is a classic. Well done, Kevin. It really is. It doesn't matter how old or how young you are. It does actually transcend time. If you are a fan who's ever going to a game, don't go into the wrong end. It's just hard to bear. And Stephen McNamara says Boyle's a huge loss, Peter. Can't believe the old firm never went for him. Easily good enough for both. I think so. He was direct, certainly the best player in the park, a couple of weeks ago, just before he decided to go. So whether they get him Queen's Park, Jack Ross, it certainly would show a real sign of ambition in Motherwell Hibs.
I've went for Hibs 2-1.
So have I, Ruffy. Yeah.
I think I went for a draw.
A draw?
I think so.
Yes.
I
can see this, Ali. This is the week, midweek. Always throws up funny results, Ruffy, doesn't it?
It's great when you can have a laugh when you're at the top of the table and you're not at the bottom.
I'm not caring if Tam Cowan loses it. We are going to a great restaurant.
He knows a few.
If you go onto his Instagram account, and interestingly enough, I must give Hibs a mention because I know Motherwell have got a great PR machine that goes through it, but Hibs have got...
It was very clever. I know what you're going
Dimitri Mitchell.
It was very clever. I thought it was very creative, and I thought it was a nice way to negotiate what could potentially be quite an awkward introduction and an awkward first press conference. I thought it was a clever way to introduce it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, Ruffy, go on the Hibs social media and you'll see the signing of Dimitri Mitchell, and they've put together a funny, clever video of him signing, and obviously he used to be at Hearts and everything. It's well worth a watch.
Dodgy tweets in his past. So
yes, he's see, you've got to be careful, haven't you? Because they go through them all. That's all I'm saying to you, Ruffy. They go back the way to try and nail you for something. So we've got Hibs to win. Ali's got a draw. This game is just a belter for me. St Johnstone against Dundee. I mean, it's so nervy, and I feel for both managers.
Yeah, I think we all do. We don't want to see anybody losing their job, particularly at this stage of the season. I think Tam McManus is right. I think it'll be one goal that'll decide this, and it's whoever gets it, we'll move on. I really do think St Johnstone are going through a really, really bad time now, obviously with the cup defeat, but they're at home. And I think it's got to turn sometime. I'm not getting kidded with Dundee beating Dumbarton 1-0 with a penalty, so they're not playing particularly well either. So I've went for the home win.
Yeah.
I've went for 1-0 St Johnstone.
Oh, have you? Well, I have to say, they've got Kevin McDonald, obviously in the twilight of his career, who's got a great experience down south. He's been training with them. Whether they're able to influence him to get in there, I still think, Ali, that the remit here for Callum Davison should be, people are questioning whether the board are going to show the loyalty and stick with him. I think his only remit is forget about the cups, just get us out of the danger. Yeah,
it's about survival. I don't think it's about anything other than survival, and I thought the scenes after the game on Saturday, Kelty, were difficult to watch. I think for the players walking through it, I thought it was ugly. I think it would have been a really difficult experience. I've actually gone for Dundee to win the game. I think sometimes when you're on a slump like that, it can be very difficult to arrest it. It can be very difficult to come out of it after you feel as though you've lost the trust of the support and you feel as though you're in free fall. I think it's a huge game for them, and I think if they do lose it, I just wonder if Callum Davidson might decide himself that he's had enough, that it might need someone else to come in.
I've heard that twice this week, and
I said it, but I'm not saying he's going to leave without getting his contract honoured.
Even then, he's getting sacked.
Yeah,
I mean, but listen, every PR person at every club, they always try, the clubs, to try and, pull the wool over your eyes. If you leave and it's not of your own free will, you're sacked. It's as simple as that.
I think you can have discussions behind closed doors. You know that
mutual consent.
Yeah,
No,
like
mutual
that.
consent is, by the way, here's your money, we don't want you to be the manager.
But it can work the other way. It can work the other way.
By the way, did you really believe that when Dorothy opened the door that the whole of Oz was just lovely colours and flowers? Ruffy?
No, I do think...
What about Alec Miller? Did you feel as if that was... Ruffy, you're leaving by mutual consent.
I wasn't there when Alec Miller left. But
he was there when you left.
Yeah. But that was my decision.
Yeah.
And I did get paid up.
Exactly. No, I've yet to see a manager leave. I don't want him. I know Callum. I like him. I liked him as a player. Thought he was a good player. As a manager, he's written himself into the books. I think he's bought himself some time. And time for me, I don't know. I hope St Johnstone stick by him, but there is a moment when it becomes untenable. I don't think we're there yet. If it was a really hefty defeat, if it was 3-0, which is your scoreline for, if it's a 3-0 to Dundee at home, I think the writing's on the wall. But Callum himself says, listen, a win for St Johnstone could ease all the pressure.
The sooner we do that, the more chance we have of climbing the league. And I think, obviously Dundee, it's obviously a derby game, pressure game for both parties. And I think, we want to go and win it. We played well at home last time against them. We use that as a positive, and we make sure we've got to do it again on Wednesday night. But the win, performance and win are the big thing.
I can't separate them, Ali. I've got it 1-1.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to call it. I don't think there'll be much between them at all. I don't see a 3-0 like what you were chatting about there, but
yeah.
I do think any defeat at all for St Johnstone raises a question. I think inevitably it raises a question.
I just thought St Johnstone, okay, they get beat 1-0, but if you look at that game, Kelty Hart's goalkeeper had 2 world-class saves, and if either one of them had went in early, I think St Johnstone would have won that game.
Yeah, but they didn't.
No.
What did you go for?
St Johnstone 1-0.
St Johnstone 1-0. What did you go for, Ali?
Dundee 1-0.
Dundee 1-0. Oh, it's a big... By the way, I am looking at everybody's... There's a big swing coming in the predictor, Ali. You know that, don't you? There are so many differences between us.
Peter, I'm not getting into any mind games. Just concentrating.
Absolutely.
1 week at a time.
Yeah.
Think no mistake.
Yeah, exactly. And you will get a good steak from Tam, by the way. Have you had a look at his Instagram? Tam Cowan's every Instagram post is food.
Is it?
We will not be in a duff restaurant. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, I have no doubt. He loves his food, and I'm sure he won't let us down.
Well, absolutely. It's the finest wines that we need to concentrate on to wash it down.
Well, I know he's been at the Whole Wong lately, and apparently the food's magnificent. The new one. Oh, yeah. So, for the benefit of people who don't live in the west of Scotland, it was a fantastic Chinese restaurant, and the food was sensational. So
they've moved up where the old Albany was, up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the benefit of our younger people, that's somewhere in the centre of town that we'll need to find. Anyway, Dundee United, Ross County, I've got 1-1 as well. Ross County, Big Malky, for me, good coach. I think he'll get them out of it, despite the fact that they're lost in the round of the Scottish Cup with that loss to Livingston. I think Malky's of the same remit as Callum Davison.
Yeah, I think they're a bigger force at home than they are away from home, so I like Dundee United sometimes, so I'm sticking by them. I'm going to go Dundee United 2-1, I think.
Yeah, I've got 1-1.
I think I have 1-1.
Yeah.
I think I see a share of the spoils there.
I can sacrifice that with you, Ali, that's fine. We started on a sad note with Wim Jansen, and I don't really like to end on a sad note more often than not, but the tragedy in the Africa Cup of Nations with 8 football fans who have died, the suggestion is that even a kid has been involved in it. A stampede, it's tragic, and 50 people have been injured, Ali, as well. It's just the last thing you want to see. And the stadium itself just looks like a really top-drawer stadium. It's
horrendous. I thought it was really sobering news when that came out today, and I do wonder if it might go higher, if the count might get higher over the next few days. I think it is a tragedy. I think there's no other word for it. I think it's desperately sad.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks, Ruffy, because we're going to go out to, we've obviously got our friends out there at Social Recluse in King Street in Glasgow, and we're going to go out there with a select audience and do a wee night. Myself
Cool.
And yourself are going to be out there with him, and Bob and his staff have got some great gear. Hopefully we can entice Alison out to the place. It's got some great gear. He's got a great shop, lots of great retro stuff, which I think you'll like. You'll like it, definitely, Alison. And we're going to put some of our own merchandise in there, and we're going to give some of our viewers the chance to come along with us. 2 lucky viewers will get the chance to come along on the night. We'll give them some goodies, and they can enjoy a wee evening. Might have a wee shandy or two and talk football.
Yeah, as you know, through our careers we've done that on the road stuff quite a lot, and there's nothing better than putting faces to names in our show, and I'm sure a lot of people would love to turn out. I hope it's a big story. He's got a big shop he's got, is it?
Yeah, it's a good size shop. I'm really looking forward to it. Although there are some...
Will we be segregated, or is it just...
No, everybody's in. Everybody. Celtic Rangers fans are in the same end with Hearts and Hibs if we bring them through. And of course any other supporters, Motherwell, Hamilton, the lot, if we can get a nice little group there, we'll talk about football. We leave you tonight on that rather sad note that we started the programme with. I think the footballing world always pays tribute and mourns the loss of someone who's etched themselves into the history of football. Certainly in the Netherlands, he is an icon of that great golden era of Dutch football. I'm talking, of course, about Wim Jansen. Here in Scotland, for the Celtic supporters, they remember him with great fondness. He sadly passed away at 75 after suffering from dementia. From everybody here on the Football Show, rest in peace to Wim Jansen. Thank you to you all for watching. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you tomorrow.